Welcome to season 2 of the Evolve podcast.
In this new season, you're going to see upgraded equipment and guests that are going to be joining us on themes of business, self-development, health and fitness coaching, and our journey from start to finish.
So sit back, relax, and enjoy the rest of this podcast.
Peace.
All right, we're back for another episode of the Evolve podcast. Season 2, episode 3.
Welcome back. We just discovered something and we discovered that it's very important to know what you're talking about before talking about it.
Yes. We realized that we can talk on tangents for hours on end. And one of the biggest lessons that we made from season 1 was that we go on lots of tangents. And then we caught ourselves doing it just 20 minutes ago, recording this podcast. And we realized that and we were like, nah, we are not doing this again. So we just deleted all of our content.
We deleted like 30 minutes of what we recorded. So we're back. We're going to go on a little bit more of a structured conversation, which we believe is a lot better. A lot better? Is that?
It's the worst English ever.
Okay, sorry. I don't know what to say now.
We're wogs.
We like to talk, and we've created this podcast for the reason to talk, but we've realized that we talk too much. So we need structure to when we talk on this podcast. So welcome back. If you are watching, you can see that we're in the office. We're back to where we started, where our roots lied. My English isn't really good today, so please bear with me. But we're gonna recap on our previous podcast with Vinny. That was a really good podcast.
It was a really good podcast. So we went down to Melbourne. The whole reason we went down to Melbourne was to expand our team for Dynamicrecov. So as you can see, we got a bit of merch. We got our shirts on because we live and breathe Dynamicrecov. That's our business. This podcast is just a little subsection of what we do every day. Now, when we went down there, the whole preface of it was to expand our team. But we had finished our 20 episodes and fully uploaded all of them before we got to Melbourne. And we were like, oh, sweet. We bought this new equipment. We went down to Melbourne and some of our friends were coming down on the weekend. And we thought we would actually do some collabs with them because that's what we wanted to kind of do in that with this new season. And we've already introduced the fact that we're going to start doing more collabs. Our first one was with Vinny, and we realized that our friends were actually pretty good in front of a camera.
They were, and it was they were very deep conversations. They were conversations that we would have with them one-on-one, but it was a different side to them that we've never seen before, or the questions that we were asking got answers that we had never heard before either. So we learned that there was a powerful message behind what we were doing and talking with them about, and it was our themes. Our themes were the main things that we like to talk to them about outside of the podcast and also, within the podcast. So I feel like what we've done with the Evolve podcast is stuck really true to those themes, and you'll see in those coming episodes that they're the main themes, which is self-development, health and fitness, and business and growth. So they're the main things, the main themes that you'll see a lot more in these podcasts.
Yeah. So obviously those 3 main arcs is the 3 things that we're going to really be heavily focusing on this podcast, because essentially what we want to promote in this podcast is what we live and breathe, which is those 3 themes. And essentially we want people to come to listen to our podcast based on those 3 things. So if you want to learn more about business, if you want to learn more about self-development, if you want to learn more about health and fitness, then we want that our podcast to be the place that you come to, because we're going to have our guests coming on who might be experts in some of those fields, and we will introduce those people and ask them the questions that you might not hear before. Now, we talk to Vinny all the time, but we get drips and jabs of information from him when we have our informal chats. When we had this formal discussion in front of a camera, I feel like we were able to direct him and also lead him down pathways that got the information that we were looking for, which was based on career, business, self-development, and health and fitness. We heard about his weight loss journey and how that related to what he's built for himself in his career. So, you know what? In a nutshell, I believe that what we're doing is great. we're at season 2. I feel like we're going to make it to season 3 and season 4 and season 5. So if you continue watching, you're going to see constant improvements. We're in the office, as you may be able to see if you're watching this on camera. But essentially, yeah, I feel like you're going to see more of the Evolved podcast.
Now, the reason we called it the Evolve podcast was because we threw ourselves in the deep end with it. And as you may or may not know, for new people that are listening, make sure that you actually share this with people that are interested in similar topics, because you never know, our podcast may be powerful to them. But the main reason behind the Evolve podcast and why we named it that was to emphasize the goal of putting aside 20 hours of work. And that's what our first podcast was essentially about. We went to a podcast studio, we sat there, we talked for about an hour about how putting 20 hours of work aside can really make you hone in on what you enjoy. It can show you where your passion lies. It can show you if it is the right path for you. And that's the one thing that we learned along the process is, wow, okay, cool, we actually enjoy this. It was very, very different for myself to be on camera, for both of us to be on camera and talking in a setting like this. So now we have honed in on those things, and over the 20 hours, we... Come on in. Take a seat. No, we were talking about you, and this is perfect. This is actually perfect. Vinny has just entered the chat, guys.
This is Vinny from season 2, episode 2, by the way.
We were just talking about, and Vinny can listen in on this, and we were just talking about how the 20 hours of work that you put aside for something can grow a passion that you never thought you could grow.
And in his podcast, we really dived into the evolution of a caterpillar into a butterfly. And while that might sound a bit silly to most people, that's how we've kind of dissected the whole evolution path. And that whole 20 hours was essentially us wanting to develop a skill, which was podcasting in a way, which is essentially interviewing when you have someone in front of you, right? You're interviewing them, you're asking them questions to find out more information about their expertise, what they do. So this is what we want to continue doing. We obviously love it. We loved it with Vinny, and we're going to continue doing it with our friends. We're essentially our next episode, we're going to actually have one of our close friends, Adrian, and he's also in the health and fitness industry. So tune in for that one. It's going to be really related to what we do every day. So it will be good.
It's definitely, it's taken its time. It's something that I didn't think I would like to do. But growing a skill that you've never done before is part of the journey. And with the evolution that we were talking about with Vinny in the previous episode was entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship.
That's one.
Yeah. Okay, sorry. My English is so bad today.
I can never say that word, but you know.
Entrepreneurship, whatever it is. Anyway, and we're just excited to now like continue this whole theme with every single episode, and yeah, it's going to be exciting. So stick around.
What would you say was your biggest learnings that you took away from the first 20 episodes that you did?
I think one of the biggest things I took away from doing 20 hours of something that I never thought I could do was gaining that skill, which is the main preface behind the 20 hours of work. But I think finding a passion for something, I never really related any of my skills or skill set to a passion. I would always just have a skill and have it and sit on it and put it in my pocket and say, hey, I can fix this door. Hey, I can fix this wall.
I can be good at football because you're a football player, right? So you gain the skill of being pretty good at football, but you never really paid attention to it as, oh, I gained this skill, because it was just something that happened from a really young age for you. Whereas for the podcast, you had this dream to run a podcast, but you never thought of the work involved and the skill that you had to attain to get to that level.
I saw the dream. I saw the goal. I saw the light at the end of the tunnel. I just didn't know what was in the dark prior to that light. And getting closer and closer to what the end of the 20 hours was, that light, it made me learn that patience is a very, very strong attribute to learn, especially when it comes to learning a new skill. If you're not patient, if you don't give yourself and, the skill, the time of day, you're actually just going to jump the gun and you're going to make more mistakes, which is more enjoyable. But then you're just completely going in a circle and you stay in the dark.
100%. And we made a lot of mistakes along the way. We still are making mistakes. As we said before, we've already been recording this one episode for at least an hour, right? And we've had to take retakes. We've had to delete the recordings because one of the cameras wasn't recording. One of the mics wasn't connected. So there was a few problems that we thought we had come over by this stage, but we obviously...
Now, one of the reasons that we did go to Melbourne was to expand our team, and Brendan touched on that earlier. It was an experience that we've gone through before. We ran headfirst into the wall pretty much, and we did it in Queensland. It was something that failed, and that was another learning curve for myself and for you.
And this is related to Dynamicrecov.
And this is related to Dynamicrecov. And that whole Melbourne trip, what did you gain from that Melbourne trip? Because it was huge in the sense that you did a lot of interviews with potential trainers, and then we had the weekend where we did the podcast and we really reflected on everything that happened. But what was the one main takeaway that you had from that Melbourne trip?
I was scared. If I want to be completely honest, it was scary. I obviously had done this in Queensland. When I went to Queensland, to give everyone an idea, I went there by myself. And I just went there for a day trip and I did 5 interviews back to back. Came back, and within 4 months, that whole team was disbanded and nothing actually came to fruition in Queensland. I think we ended up getting 2 clients in Queensland, and the 2 clients we had with one of the trainers ended up just ghosting us completely. But we got one good review out of it. So I don't know what the hell happened there, to be honest. Then obviously that failed. So when we came back, it was a good 6 months of not really thinking about expansions. We had this idea to just expand again into Melbourne. Obviously the excitement and adrenaline was there for me to just be like, okay, yes, sweet. I'll start talking to Melbourne trainers. When it became real and we landed in Melbourne, I had this fear because I was like, I did this before in Queensland and it failed. I don't want this to happen again. So I overcommitted. I organised 13 interviews in the span of 3 days, and I feel like in a way that was good because I got to really see a wide variety of people. I've done it heaps of times in Sydney, so I have that skill of being able to interview people and pick a good team. But essentially, I still had this fear because in my mind, I was like, I've done this before. Last time I did it, I failed. I don't know if it's going to work out this time. But in a way, I feel like we did come good. It is still fresh. It only happened a month ago. So we still are getting used to this new team and getting used to the Melbourne area. But it was a good thing because I like to throw myself into the deep end with things. We like to throw ourselves into the deep end with things. Just like this podcast, we're still getting used to this equipment, and I'm still not used to hearing my own voice in my head, right? But in a way, if you're not really committing to learning and committing to pushing yourself past boundaries, you're never going to really grow as a person, and we're all about self-development.
I think that is exactly what I wanted to touch on as well. We didn't get to this stage just by throwing ourselves in the deep end. Well, we did, but let me give a bit of backstory as to how we got to this stage. We started this business as a dropshipping business. We started it as a recovery dropshipping business. We opened up a Shopify account. We had the idea. Everything was there. The D that you see on my chest and Brendan's chest was not the first iteration of Dynamicrecov. It took time and effort and energy and constant change for us to be like, okay, this is the one. This is the one. It's a lengthy process going into running a business or starting a new career, for instance. So having that patience that we were talking about before is definitely one skill that you should learn when throwing yourself in the deep end.
With running your business, 100%. So to give people an idea, this 20 episodes or 20 hours of podcast recording, right? We started recording in October 2023. right now, as we record this, it's the 6th of September 2024.
Almost a year.
Yeah, almost a year. And we've only uploaded 20 episodes. No, 22 now. Yeah, right now it's 22 episodes. But essentially, kind of think about that fact. It's taken us a year to fully upload all those videos. So in that time frame, we recorded them. Then there was editing involved. Now we've gone to the point where we've got equipment. So with everything in life, it's a step-by-step process. You can go fast at it, you can go slow at it, but at the end of the day, if you have this goal in mind, all it is trying to break that goal down into actionable steps and trying to achieve them over time.
And that 20 hours allows you to teach someone as well. Like that 20 hours of work made, we could go and have a conversation with someone who's interested in running a podcast. And we could say, hey, 20 hours, put it aside. See what you can actually potentially put yourself through, because that is an enjoyable process. It was rough. It was something that I didn't want to do. Brendan would pull my ear and run me to the ground to bring me to these Friday sessions where we'd sit here and just have the little Rode microphones but that was part of the process. That grafting, that push that you need sometimes.
That external motivator, someone that is there to motivate you, just like a PT. So a PT is going to come into your life and be like, all right, come on, we said that we're going to do 10 push-ups. Let's aim for 10 push-ups.
Brendan said, let's do 20 podcasts. And, he was jamming me up. He's like, come on, let's do 20 podcasts.
We ended up doing 24, but 4 got lost.
And that's the highs and lows. You're going to find those pockets where far out I've lost something, or I did this wrong, or I did that wrong. The first thing is to be patient. Hey, take a deep breath. It's all good. Take a step back. Okay, how can I avoid this next time? What's another step-by-step process that I can put in place so I don't make that mistake again? And those processes are the step-by-step actionable steps that you've just said that are so important, and that you need to take on board and be like, okay, cool, I can write this down. These are the step-by-step processes so I don't make this mistake again.
100%.
And that's exactly like running a business. Running a business is that. We've learned in the nearly 2 years that we've been running this business, we could probably run a business hypothetically in 2-3 months, because we've learned over a longer period of time how to set up this, how to set up that. And there's a step-by-step process now.
Yeah, like if we were to start again or start all over,
correct,
it would be a lot faster for us to get to the stage that we're at right now with it. I'm going to say that in another year, we're going to say the same thing.
Yeah, 100%.
And another year, we're going to say the same thing, that it's going to be even faster and even faster. So the longer time frame that you stretch something, the more learnings you're going to take from it, right? And one thing that I wanted to talk about in this podcast specifically was the transition for Dynamicrecov. So we went from, obviously we talked about before, the products and the Shopify store. Then we realized, like, wait a second, we're PTs. Why don't we just run a business as PTs and then grow that? So then we started doing Dynamicrecov as it is now, where it's a mobile personal training, which is what we do. We're both mobile PTs, and we still actually work in the business as mobile PTs. But then there was a stage in the business, I think it was around a year and a half in, where I started realizing a lot of my clients were asking me, and I've been a PT for 5 years, but at this stage I was like, a lot of my clients are asking me all these nutrition related questions. And a lot of these questions I didn't have the answers to. I didn't have the answers to these questions, because I was like, oh, I don't want to give you the wrong advice.
You know what? I remember that stage because you were like, oh, maybe I should do a nutrition course.
Yes.
And you were like in that headspace, you're like, oh, you know what? I'm just going to do a nutrition course. I was like, bro, you're running a business as well. You're going to have no time. You're going to have no time for yourself.
Yeah, I know, because I barely had time to do the business processes that we're following. And then I was like, wait a second. What if I just create a nutrition team? And then they can kind of help us as PTs to give people not only the training and the lifestyle around improving their exercise habits, but also improving their nutrition habits. Because if you combine the two, that's how you're going to achieve better health.
I remember having that conversation because I didn't have all the answers either for nutrition. And I'm like, oh, maybe I need to do a nutrition course. Crap. But when Brendan made that comment of maybe we can just make a nutrition team, it was gun ho from there, and we were looking around for good nutritionists, and I think we put out a LinkedIn ad.
We did put a LinkedIn ad. And
Yeah,
one of the nutritionists that we're working with right now,
Yeah.
Beck, one of the nutritionists that's working with us right now, who is actually our nutritionist as well, who we actually see personally. I found her after my LinkedIn ad was finished, and she reached out to me. So this is actually a good tip for anyone that's looking for a job right now, right? So
jump on LinkedIn right now.
No, so I put up an ad. I got 54 applicants within a day, something crazy like that. But then the longer you leave the LinkedIn ad up, it keeps on charging you. So I was like, okay, I've got 53 applicants, haven't even gone through any of them. Let me just stop the ad so it stops taking out money out, and I'll just review these 54 applicants. And as I put the pause, then I got a message like 3 or 4 hours later when we were on the way to, anyway, we were on the way somewhere, and I got this random message from LinkedIn, and it was from Beck, and it was a message along the lines of, I was really excited to apply for your role, except when I saw it this morning when I was going to apply, I was going into class, like obviously uni class, and then she said she was going to apply after uni, so she saved it. And the fact that she went out of her way to reach out to the person that put up the ad and write a message and was really interested in the role and sent her resume, I was like, you know what, I really respect that, because she went out of her way to put that application through and make her stance. And if I'm going to be honest, I didn't look at any of the other applicants after I saw that message. I was like, you know what, I'm done.
That was very powerful. And I remember Brendan coming to me and be like, look, mate, look at this. She messaged me. And I was like, oh, that's ballsy.
Ballsy.
That's good, bro.
And we
Like,
still say the same thing about it to this day.
to this day, bro. To this day. And it was just such a powerful message. And I think the main thing we took away from it is, if you portray yourself or your business as something professional or a professional business, people like what you portray. And if you can draw attention to someone like a nutritionist that wants to go out of their way and be like, oh my God, I'm so interested in what you guys have to offer and the process of what you have to offer, that speaks levels
100%.
to what you have created, because that makes you go, okay, I'm doing something right. And that was just a little sprinkle of like, cool, we're doing the right thing.
Something that we've experienced as we started developing Dynamicrecov in a nutshell. One big thing as well was, and this is something that we learned from Vinny's podcast as well, but also from other moments, is we've got a few friends that are in sales, and sales is part of the operations of our business at Dynamicrecov, because we essentially have to provide the people that work for us, or the trainers and nutritionists, with clients. That's essentially what we kind of do. And in that is a lot of sales. So we kind of are on the phones a lot. And we have never been salespeople. We've never worked sales jobs. We've just been PTs. So we didn't know what to do when it came to that. So we went to our friends and we asked them questions. Hey, how do you develop sales skills? What do you have to, what's the first thing when it comes to sales? And they said, you guys would be pretty good salespeople. And we were like, what do you mean? And I'll always remember Vinny telling me this, is that we would be good because we actually care about the business. We actually care about what we provide. So, and that's going to show up in our phone calls. It's going to show up when we're talking to people, because we actually do care about what we do, because we are PTs and we're just talking to people that are looking for that advice or for that help.
And what's that? That's passion.
Passion.
If you put passion behind anything you do,
it's going to show. People can see
time,
that.
big
People can
time.
see that. People can hear it. And as soon as we get on the phones, I hear a lot of people actually genuinely trust us, because we're being honest, we're being open, and we're actually showing how much we care about what we've created. Because I love what we've created.
Oh, it's crazy what we have created. I think that care factor that we've put into this business and wanting to make it bigger and better every single day, that's what's starting to show. It's taken us a long time to get here. And the main thing that we've both taken away from this whole experience is that, I'll say it again, patience, but it's a learning process. It's a complete other learning process that you never thought you'd put your mind to. And here we are.
Here we are. We've got to this stage now. Now, I've got a question for you. What was the initial reason for you starting or becoming a PT in the first place?
Ooh, okay. The reason I started becoming a PT was because I didn't know what to do. I had no idea what to do. And it was a conversation that I had with my mum, and she said, "What is it that you like to do?" And I said, "I don't know. I play soccer. I play football.
Yeah, you better have changed that.
I play football. I swim. I focus. I don't know. I like sports." And she was like, "Oh, why don't you do PT?" And I was like, "Okay.
Never thought of that one.
Never thought of that one. What a bloody beautiful idea that is, mate." So I did 6 months of uni. I did my Bachelor of Exercise Sports Science for 6 months, left, become a labourer. And after becoming a labourer, I couldn't crack it, couldn't hack it. I was like, nah, I'm out. Then I had that conversation with mum, became a PT, and I did a 6-month accelerated course. Never thought I'd be 5 years into the industry and now running a business. So that was my kickstart. And
Essentially, you had like an upward spiral along your journey.
100%. And that upward spiral got me to the point where we connected. Like-minded PTs. You were doing mobile PT at the time. I was doing gym PT. Wasn't really my vibe. I think you go into the mentality of a PT, you're going to be in a gym. And that's the first thing you think of is, I'm going to be a gym trainer.
I feel like that is what a lot of PTs view as like the upper echelon of what you're supposed to do. Like you're supposed to get your belt stripes from going into like your group training gyms like F45s or working at the employee model gyms like Vision and stuff like that, and essentially building yourself up to run your own business inside a gym like Fitness First or Anytime Fitness.
And I think because I never had a relationship with going to the gym, I never had a relationship with fitness. I had a relationship with fitness in the sense of doing a sport or like football or swimming. And that was my passion, was being fit. But
or running, like you've done like a variety of sports. And I would say to tell anyone here, while you might not be into the gym, you're probably one of the fittest guys I know.
Appreciate it.
Like I was, just to give you an idea of how fit this guy is, I was training for my first longer run. It was a City to Surf. And I think I was like 12 weeks into training, and Rhiannon hit me up and was like, "Oh, you're running, eh?" And I was like, "Yeah." By the way, this guy wasn't running for like at least 6 months or 7 months. He told me he went for one run in that time frame. And he was like, "Oh, you want to go for a run?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. I'll smash you though, because I've been training." My mindset, because I was like, this guy doesn't train, he doesn't run at all. And we went for a run. He was like, "Come on, what?" I was behind the bloke. I was like, I can't do this. He's like, "Come on, let's go." And he wasn't even breaking a sweat or anything.
Oh my God, that was the funniest thing. And
And you called me a nugget while I was running.
because he's come straight out of the gym and he's gone, "Yeah, I'll go for a run." He runs with his shoulders. He runs with his freaking shoulders. I'm like, oh my God, you're a nugget.
You're not meant for this.
But over time and the thing is, like, Brendan's style of training is a lot more enjoyable for me now, and it's kind of made me fall into a passion. And that passion is slowing down the movements, focusing on a structure and a foundation before going into something like a 45 or what's the other one, the yard or C3. I could do those things, no problem. But as soon as I got an injury, I was like, oh God. Brendan would come to me and be like, "Mate, have you done your mobility, mate? You stuck your ass in the air, mate?"
Like, time to get through the process, build the foundations, and you can get back to C3.
Yeah.
But first, you need to do the mobility training.
Yeah, and that's where I've now found a bit more of a passion. It's taken me a while because running a business for myself is new venture. So for anyone running a business venture, it's always important to keep fitness in your life as consistent as possible. But
Because we have lost ourselves along the road. So we've only been doing it for 2 years. In that 2 years, I feel like both of us have gone through brief periods that didn't last long, where we weren't really well, we didn't train too much, or wasn't as regular as it should be, or wanted it to be.
We put stress on our own shoulders because we thought, oh my God, running a business, you've got to be, engaged all the time and talking confidently and this and that. And you tend to fade away from the fitness side of things.
A lot of people, I think, you know what it is? I feel like I cracked the code. When you're running a business, you have this idea that you have to be 10 years ahead. Because you view all these people on social media, or like you have this image that to run a business, you have to be this, very important person.
Older figure.
Rocks around in a suitcase with a suitcase in his hand and like all professional and that. But no one's like that when they start a business, and we've been running it for 2 years and we've built skills over time. And the skills that I have now, I didn't have 2 years ago, but I already know that the skills I have in 2 years, I don't have now. It's all about growing and developing yourself into the person that you want to become.
I think another big thing that we have learnt to develop along the way is our communication skills. And something like this podcast has given us that opportunity to watch ourselves. Not many people watch themselves or give them the time of day, or give yourself the time of day to be like, oh, I can improve this, I can improve that. And I think that's another, I'm not saying to start a podcast just to improve yourself, but
or start a business.
Or start a business.
You don't have to do those
but
things.
Relating it back to health and fitness, it's like progress pics. If you take a progress pic in January and you want to see yourself where you are in a year's time, and you do a monthly photo shoot of yourself, and you look back in a year's time and you go, wow, my body's changed. I started eating well. I started training. I was social, and I was keeping myself happy. With a podcast, or with our podcast and with our business, we've been able to see different sides of ourselves. With this recording, for instance, we've been able to watch ourselves and develop our communication skills. That's a big skill to learn.
100%. And I feel like, as you just said, the whole thing about progress pics, that's how you do it in a health and fitness journey.
Yeah.
To take progress pics, to track your weight if that's something you want to track. But I always try to deviate people away from tracking their weight because it's not really the best thing. I always say progress photos is the best. But with business, sometimes, like, think of our business, it's really hard. There are ways to track it, but there's no progress photos. Sometimes you need to create the statistics, and it's all about looking at numbers and stuff like that. With the podcast, it's like rewatching your videos. I feel like with any venture, any skill, whatever it is, I feel like it's very important to break it down and really assess how you're progressing over time. Because if you're not looking back at how you're progressing, how are you going to make progress for the future? Or how are you going to know if you actually are progressing or making an impact into what your goal is?
I think that's a very important thing to keep in mind, 100%. Now, when being a personal trainer,
you do that for your clients.
But there's times where personal trainers just hit a brick wall. They don't know, they can't find that passion. There was times where I've done it as well. I've gotten into it, and we've had conversations about this multiple times where I'll be like, that's it, I want to hang up the boots.
Because it's hard.
It's hard.
When you're focusing on your own health and fitness journey, all you have to focus on is, I've got this goal. This is how I break this goal into actionable steps. This is how I track my goal. 3 things, right? That's 3 things you need to work on. And then you just have to do those actionable steps that you created to eventually get to your goal. Now, when you get clients as a personal trainer, you have to create those 3 things for all these people, but you also have to be the person that tracks those 3 things and also the person that instructs those 3 things to achieve. So not only do you have to do it for yourself in your own journey, but you have to do it for all these other people, however many clients you get. And I know a lot of trainers that work for us that struggle with that, especially when they first become a PT. It's usually like when they first become a PT, they struggle with like, oh, I just got another client. I don't know if I'm able to handle another person's journey, especially if they're very different. But I say, take it easy. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon. I want you to be in this industry forever, not just for a short time. A lot of PTs burn out because they just go pedal to the metal. But if you take it easy, take it one client at a time, you're going to be a lot more successful than the average PT.
And do you believe that statistic of, people that are in the industry or in the personal training industry stop after 6 months? Do you believe that's the reason why? Is because they burn themselves out too quick?
Yep, 100%. Because people come to PTs because they are not able to manage their health and fitness journey, right? So they need that guidance from someone else that focuses on that stuff. Now, if you're a PT, you're taking the burden of having to coach someone to improving their health and fitness, which is such an important thing. You're impacting someone's life because your advice is something that's going to help shape them into a future person. You're improving them. You're helping them incorporate new exercise habits into their daily routine. You're helping them focus on improving their sleep. You're helping them improve their diet. So all these things is going to change that person in a way. So you're taking that burden on, and you won't be able to make enough money as a personal trainer if you only have one client. So you have to make sure that you're able to do it not only for one person, but for another person and another person and another person, but then also for yourself as well. So you're managing like 10 plus fitness journeys all at once.
I've got a question for you. How did you know you wanted to be a personal trainer?
Oh, okay.
Where did it start?
Where did it start? For me, my first job as a personal trainer was as a mobile PT. And if I want to be honest, I've never left. The reason why I've never left is because pretty early on, I built a really solid base of clients that some of them I still see to this day. So in my first 3 months, I met some of my current clients. And when I first started, I had imposter syndrome. I remember I met this lady at the park and I didn't know how to help her. I was asking her about her goals, and she told me she had menopause and all this kind of stuff. And I was a bit like, oh, I don't know what to do here. I've never met anyone that has menopause. I wouldn't know how to help you. And I kind of said that to her in a nutshell. And then I lost a client, obviously, and didn't know what to do. But in a way, I felt like that was a learning curve. I ended up going to my second consult. I think I failed that one too. But then my third consult is one of my clients that I see right now. And essentially what I experienced after that was that, okay, I might not be the right PT for these people, but I am for this person. And all I needed to do was make sure that I built enough relationships or saw enough people to build enough clients like this person I just met that would eventually make me successful as a personal trainer or as a coach. And I was able to do that early on, but working under a company, under a brand, which is a lot easier than just running your own business. And essentially that's where I'm at right now.
It's a crazy process, eh? Because you learn so much about whether
Yourself as well.
Yourself and whether it's actually something you want to do long term. Because being a personal trainer, in a sense, you can be a little bit of a psychologist in a way. And the psychological side of things is something that I enjoyed in uni as well. But also being able to talk to people at different levels. So when it came to personal training, that's what I enjoyed. That was my passion, was talking to people. So when you introduced me to the whole mobile personal training side of things, I was scared, nervous. What do? I don't know. You threw me right in the deep end. I had no choice. But it was that process of, okay, cool, I'm going to be talking to people. I'm going to be understanding their lives and why they're like this. That's a really powerful way to conversate with people, is through an experience. So for instance, my experience with personal training, I never had that relationship. And that relationship is what stopped me from finding my passion. But it's taken me 4 or 5 years of being a personal trainer to find my passion. With your journey, it was,
within 3 months, but like I feel like
within 3 months, but like you always had that relationship with training. You had that, you had Adrian pushing you, and we'll go on about Adrian soon, but you had Adrian say, come to the gym with me. You created a connection with training and creating habits and a lifestyle right off the bat. So when Adrian introduced you to becoming a PT, it was second nature because you already did it with yourself. And that's a very important part of being a personal trainer, is that if you
And
can
when
do
I
it for
re-
yourself.
And when I realized that it's being a PT is just helping someone create that passion within themselves about something. I don't expect them to follow my type of training advice and do the same things I do, because only I like doing that. It's about teaching someone that this is what you kind of need to do to achieve these goals, and you can get there in whatever road you want to take. There's this option, this option, this option, this option. It's about choosing the options that suit that person and that person will be able to stick to for the rest of their life. And that's pretty much it.
How did Adrian convince you to be a personal trainer?
Convince me? Say for me, it was more, I was already studying at uni,
Yeah.
sports science, and I was going down the road of becoming a physio. Then one of my tutors in class, because I used to be like pretty loud in class and just answer these random questions, because it was an exercise rehab class. So that was one of my classes that I liked the most, because it was about rehab and everything. And he said to me one time after class, because I used to always sit back and talk to him, he would say like, you know what? I see you becoming a good PT. I never had the thought of becoming a PT in my head ever until that moment. And I was like, you know what, stuff it, I'll become a PT. So then I did the short online course, became a PT. Adrian already was a PT and he was working for this company already. So I hit him up and I was like, hey, can I get a job?
Hey, mate. Can I be a PT with you?
Can I get a job? And he was like, yeah, sure, no worries. Here's an interview. Within a week, I got the job and I was like, oh, sweet. That's how easy it is to become a PT. And then, you know what? That's history.
Kudos to him. He's
the one that started this beam, and now I'm running this brand, and I feel like this is what I want to do.
And to touch on Adrian and the coming podcast, next week we do have a podcast coming out with him. We did Vinny last week. We've got us this week, and then Adrian next week. That's going to be a good podcast, because it's 3 PTs sitting in a room.
What can go wrong?
What could go wrong? I mean, not much. There could be some skeptical talks about nutrition or the type of training. And
Wait, nutrition team, please don't watch this.
But it's if you are a personal trainer that is listening to these type of podcasts, it's interesting to get different perspective on what personal trainers are doing in the current day
in the industry. And I feel like, if you type in personal training podcasts on Spotify, you're going to see personal trainers with decades of experience. The three of us are pretty
Fresh.
new. Yeah,
We're
pretty fresh
fresh.
in the industry. We've all only got like 5 to 6 years each of experience, which is quite a bit if you nut it out. But essentially, I'd still say we're pretty fresh in the industry. But we definitely know that we're going to be in the industry for a long time to come.
Yeah.
Also, just to preface it, Adrian just bought a gym.
Hey, he did. So this will be like somewhat coming out around the time that he's opening up one as well. So
we didn't plan that.
We didn't plan that at all. It just happened. But that's exciting. That's like, you'll see a lot more content from us working out of our best mate's gym. It's crazy to like put all that into perspective as well.
It is pretty cool.
It's crazy. I think there's going to be a lot of interesting stuff coming up in future episodes.
A few more guests, a few more things that we're doing. And as you tune in, you're going to see all those things come to fruition.
100%. I think what's to come, I want you to follow and make sure that you share this video with anyone that's interested.
If you liked what we talked about,
what we talked about. Exactly right. But that's it.
Yeah. Well, it was good seeing you guys, and we'll see you soon. Can I press one of the buttons?
You can press one of the buttons, yes. Okay.
See you guys.
Thank you guys for listening to this week's episode of the Evolve podcast with Brendan and Rhiannon.
Make sure that you stay tuned for next week's episode. We're going to be dropping one every week, so make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe. And for now, the Evolve podcast. We'll see you soon.
And we're out.
Ciao.